are listening! Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Women Behind Anime and Manga podcast. As always, I'm Valerie, your host of the podcast, coming at you with facts and stories about influential women working in the anime and manga industries, as well as discussing some of the work that they are most known for. So, last episode, we covered musician and composer Yoko Kanno, so if you missed that, feel free to go back and watch episode 3, Let's Jazz Things Up. I had a lot of fun reading interviews with her and learning about her creative take on music, and as always, it's a pleasure to listen to the songs she has written. One of my favorites will always be Tank, the opening to Cowboy Bebop. She just has such a unique take on music, and it really shows when you listen to her work. But for any returning listeners, welcome again. As mentioned in the last episode, this episode is the one we've all been waiting for, or at least I've been waiting for. Episode 4, Hiromu in Hiding, will be focusing on the manga artist Hiromu Arakawa. So let's just dive right into it. Let's start at the beginning. So Hiromu Arakawa was born May 8th, 1973 in Tokachi, Hokkaido, Japan. And this episode is actually being released on the 6th, so happy early birthday to her. She grew up on her family's farm, and her hobbies included helping out on the farm and drawing. And from an early age, when she was asked what she wanted to be when she grew up, she was always stuck between being either a livestock farmer or someone working at a zoo, just someone working with animals, and becoming a mangaka, a manga creator. These were kind of her two dreams growing up. You know, she spent a lot of time helping her family on the farm. She grew up with animals, but she still loved drawing a lot. And eventually, as we can see now, she chose to be a mangaka since she told her parents that between the two, she loved drawing above all. So some of the works that she is most known for, the most popular series that she has written is Full Metal Alchemist, and that's actually how I know her. I mentioned in the first episode that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is one of my favorite series. So that's definitely like her number one, and it's a very popular manga series, Full Metal Alchemist, and it ran from 2001 to 2010, and it actually had two different anime adaptations. There was Full Metal Alchemist, which aired 2003 to 2004, and this one actually strayed away from her original manga series. The series started in 2001, that's when she first started writing the story, and for the anime adaptation to already come in at 2003, clearly her story wasn't done. So the anime studio kind of went off from the original plot and kind of created their own. I personally haven't watched it, so I can't really speak too much on it, but there was that adaptation, and then there was the second adaptation, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which I watched, and that aired 2009 to 2010. So the manga series ended 2010, and that's kind of where the anime was, and this one stayed true to the manga series. Clearly, it had the ending at the same time, so you really got to see the original story that Hiromu Arakawa created. That's why I chose it. I wanted to watch the anime that stayed close to its original source. So I watched that one, so it stayed true to her story. So I recommend checking out either one, kind of making comparisons, but that is her most popular manga series. Her first manga that she ever worked on was Stray Dog, which came out in 1999, so 1999 was the start of her career. She used to be an assistant to a different manga creator, and after working as a close assistant, she developed more of a passion for creating, and she decided to write her own stuff. She's also most known for the series Silver Spoon, which came out 2011 to 2019, so this was right after Full Metal, and her career was really kicking off. So a lot of people read Silver Spoon, and they know her a lot from that. And I also wanted to share with you all two series that are still going on present day, so now's the time to start reading them, catching up on them, and as new chapters come out, you're right there along with the story. there are 2 series. There is The Heroic Legend of Arslan, which started in 2013, and she's still working on it today. And there's also The Hinge of the Underworld, which just started in 2021, and is still ongoing. So that one's fairly new. This would be a really good time to catch up. Again, both of these stories are ongoing today. She has won many awards for her works Full Metal Alchemist and Silver Spoon, so those are her 2 most well-known. And I also wanted to read a little thing from an interview that I saw, kind of just about her writing process, because I think it's really unique, and I think you can definitely see it if you check out her work. So there was an interview conducted by, I'm sorry if I butchered the name, Besatsu Shonen Magazine. But in this interview, she kind of talked about her writing process, and I just wanted to share it all with you. So the interview says, quote, "One final point to mention is how Arakawa sees the process of creating manga. Apparently, she thinks of a storyboard as a character in and of itself, so turning it into a finished manuscript means taking on a godlike position and making it move for the audience. This certainly is a unique way of doing things, but it does allow her to better understand fans and create without biases." And end quote. And I just think that was really, really interesting, and it's definitely a different way to look at, writing manga, seeing the story itself as a character develop, rather than, oh, here's a story, here's some characters. I think it just shows how deeply involved she is in creating these stories, and I think it's really apparent in her stories. With Full Metal Alchemist, like, every single character within it is so fully developed, and then the story, it did feel like a character. It had such a huge roller coaster of plot twists and action and emotion. It was just such a good blend of everything. So I really enjoyed seeing her take on what it's like to create manga for her, because her storytelling skills are just absolutely insane. So there's just a quick little introduction to her as an artist and some of her works. I recommend reading her mangas and especially checking out the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood animes. But now let's get into the real discussion. So this episode's title is Hiromu in Hiding, and you might be wondering why. Like, why is she in hiding? What is she hiding? Well, Hiromu Arakawa's birth name is Hiromi Arakawa, and she decided to use the masculine name Hiromu as her pen name while writing manga. And that's the main point I wanted to talk about today. So women were really expected to only write shoujo or josei manga, which were just series written for girls that were more emotionally driven rather than action driven. However, Hiromu Arakawa's series, such as Full Metal Alchemist, are all shonen, so these are series written for boys that are more action-based rather than emotional. And because of this expectation that, women should write, romance or emotional things for other girls, Arakawa was concerned that she wouldn't be taken as seriously as a mangaka or a manga artist writing in this genre. And so, in order for her to be allowed, or to be considered to be successful, she used a more ambiguous, kind of masculine-leaning name to create her content, and that just kind of shocked me, and it makes me sad to think that the industry, or even just audiences of the industry, would care about this stuff. Just to kind of think that, I think I also read that there were, manga publishers that wouldn't even consider, shonen series that were written by women, and it just really saddens me to think that it cares. But I also, as much as it shocks me, I wouldn't doubt for a second that people wouldn't give a shonen series a shot if they knew it was written by a woman. And to be honest, I would see it working the other way. I wouldn't be shocked if people wouldn't read a shoujo series if they knew it was written by a man. And I just think it saddens me that Hiromu Arakawa felt the need she had to create a pen name in order to have a chance of being taken as seriously as the other men writing shonen series. I just think it's crazy that it really matters, and I just think it's kind of sad that, she felt as a woman that she wouldn't be credited properly. And she's actually not the only one that has kind of hidden her gender identity. There are, sorry if I butcher any names, there are Gege Akutami, which is the creator of manga and anime series Jujutsu Kaisen. They use a pen name and they have not revealed their gender identity. They are very private about that. And there's also Koyoharu Kotoge, the creator of the manga and anime series Demon Slayer. Both of these are very popular shonen series. They are very action-driven, written for a predominantly male audience. But again, these are really popular with female audiences as well. But I'm just wondering if it's the same situation. Both of these creators have written for shonen, but they aren't showing their gender identity. People are kind of assuming that they are women, trying to hide that, so they have a good chance of their series being successful. However, there are many manga creators who are just very private about their lives. They don't really like to show everything. A lot of people use pen names. They don't like their real name. They just really want to be private. So that could be the case. These could be male creators, but they could be female creators. I'm just wondering if they're in the same boat as, they feel like they have to in order to be successful. And so I'm just very curious on that. Because it's not like every single woman manga creator does this. There are female manga artists like Kazue Kato, who's the creator of Blue Exorcist, a shonen series, and I don't think she's ever hidden her gender identity. So, I mean, at least as far as my research has gone, it just shocks me to think that, if there are women coming out with shonen series and they're popular, why do some artists feel like they have to hide that in case they might be discriminated against? It's just, it's a whole bunch of what ifs or like hypotheticals. It's really just a very interesting situation. And there's just a lot going on. But kind of thinking about it a little bit more, Hiromu Arakawa was writing things in 1999, early 2000s, so maybe times were different back then. Things like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, those are more recent, and, maybe it doesn't matter as much, and people are just more accepting of women writing shonen series, men writing shoujo series. I think it's just a matter of time, and I hope we'll see a different trend in the future of, people not having to hide their gender identity if it's for the sole purpose of, being taken seriously as a creator. But anyways, I wanted to share another interview with Hiromu Arakawa that was conducted by the French magazine Anime Land. And she was actually asked about her gender and kind of its role in her work. And I just found her answer to be extremely interesting, so I just wanted to share that. I will add links to both of these interviews if you wanted to read a little bit more about her. I think she's a very interesting woman. She has some really fun answers to some of the questions she's been asked, so I highly recommend reading them. I've only pulled 2 different excerpts that kind of touch upon the main issue that I'm talking about in this episode. So definitely check it out in your free time if you'd like to. But here is the interview from Anime Land. So the question was, quote, "There has been a shonen renewal for a dozen of years, thanks to female writers such as Yellow Tanabe, Kazue Kato, and yourself. Do you feel you're bringing something different in the shonen genre?" That is the end quote of the question. And her answer is, quote, "It's above all a matter of generation. 20 years ago, there were in the Shonen Jump several really violent series, such as Hokuto no Ken or Sajigake Otokojuku. Oddly enough, girls like these stories. Those female readers found those shonen very entertaining and often more interesting than the usual shoujo manga. 10 years later, we were old enough to draw, and so we made boys manga. This explains the increased number of female drawers in this area. It is often said that women are better to talk about emotions, to write dialogues that hit the nail on the head, and men know how to create stories with twists and turns. As for me, I think it's difficult today to make a distinction between genres. Some men are really able to imagine sensitive and complex characters, while some women are able to create sometimes violent action scenes. Nowadays, each writer has their own specialty. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. End quote on her answer. And I just think that was so powerful, wouldn't you agree? I just think it's absolutely insane. And I really like that she kind of talked about, like, she was asked about, you know, oh, you're a female writer, do you think you're bringing anything to this male-driven genre? She's like, no, it doesn't matter what gender you are. Like, I don't know why there's still kind of a discrimination against it. You know, people can write whatever they're talented at, and I think that's absolutely true. I have seen many things written by women in the shonen genre that were incredible. They are really good at writing action series. And I have seen it vice versa. There are men who can write, you know, more softer stories. And yeah, it's really interesting to hear about. I also like how she talked about the audience. You know, it's always been, the definition of shonen manga is the demographic. It is a male demographic. But as she pointed out, there were a lot of female readers who were still enjoying these stories. It's kind of breaking up gender stereotypes in general. Like, oh, you know, boys like action, girls like emotional romance things. It's showing that no matter what the content is, if it's good, there's going to be an audience, no matter who the audience is. And, you know, if a manga series is, you know, good, it doesn't matter who made it. And I think that's definitely the point she was trying to make of, you know, I'm going to use this ambiguous, you know, pen name to show that it doesn't matter if I'm a girl, I can write in the shonen genre. And I think that was a really interesting take, and I highly recommend checking out the interviews that I'm going to add in the bio. So that just about concludes our 4th episode of the Women Behind Anime and Manga podcast, Hiromu in Hiding. I hope you learned something about the incredible artist, because I loved learning about her career's history. I'm curious as to what your thoughts on the issue were. Do you understand why mangaka or manga artists have hidden their gender identity? Do you think it should matter? Personally, I'm fascinated by this phenomenon because it seems like it shouldn't matter, yet it's a big deal for some. But hopefully, as time changes, manga artists won't feel like they have to hide their gender identity. Granted, some creators are just very private people and they wish to remain anonymous in general, not wanting any facts about them to be released, and that's fair. I'm just talking about the creators who feel like they need to kind of hide themselves in order to be taken seriously or to have a chance at being successful. So that's kind of my take. I would love to hear your take if you want to comment. But that is it for today. Next episode, we are going to be flying on over to America and feature our first American woman in the anime industry, Colleen Klinkenbeard. I am a big fan of her, so I'm excited to share some of her work as well as some of her comments on her experience working in the international and dubbed anime industry. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next time. This is Valerie signing off.